Okay ra ba mag-record ta? No? Sige, i-record lang nako, no? Okay, so in writing, in our previous discussion, we always talk about what is audience, no? How important audience is. Now our topic will be audience alone, no? So we will be discussing the types of the audience, no? How important audience is, and so on and so forth. Okay, let me have our PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so our topics would discuss all about what is an audience, types of audience, what is captive and not non-captive audience, primary, secondary, and tertiary audiences, real or intended audience, writing for an audience, needs, analysis, and profile. Okay, let's start. No? What is audience? No? The audience of a technical report or any piece of writing is the intended or potential readers. No? So usually, if we write, no, naadyo tayo addressee, no? If wala tayo addressee, usually naadyo purpose kung asa na to ipadala ato ang letter, no? Or ato ang technical communication. Bisan pag ato ang ginasulat class is mga manuals, of course, nandiyan na siya intended audience, no? Of which i-consider nato. So the purpose why we identify our audience, because we should not we should not consider no ourselves. So if we write in writing technical communication, dili ta maging selfish, no? Usually ang atong reader ang atong gina-consider, not ourselves, no? Because not what you want to do, but what you want your audience to do as a result of reading what you wrote. So meaning, we write, no, because we want to really kanang give information sa audience. By that, ma-perform ni audience ang iyahang purpose jud kung sa iyahang tumong why nibasa sa ana nga output. So we are effective if nahatag jud natong information, no? For example, nadaot yang cellphone, so gihatagan nato og manual, no? So by that, by giving manual, effective atong manual if naayo to niya iyang cellphone nga siya lang, no? Or ginana without physical nga help, no? By just using words, no, through writing sa instruction. Okay, so we should know our audience. No, we should have to ask these questions. First is, who am I writing this for? So para kay kinsa man ni ako ginasulat. So this is the most important thing, no, before starting up to write no specific communication. So you should ask yourself kay kinsa man ni, no, para kay kinsa man ni nga letter. Next, if you already have identified asa nimo ipadala ang communication, next question would be, what does the reader need to know? Unsa day kinahanglan mahibal-an sa akong reader, no? So what to cover and what not. So by having this question, we could know unsa ra atong coverage, no, sa ato ang ihatag nga information. Ug asa lang ta maglimit, no? Just like having thesis pohon, no, sa inyong research during sa aspect nga population and sample. So atong gibutang dito ang limitation and delimitation. So meaning dapat kabalo ta kinsa lang i-cover no nga mga respondents. So by asking yourself about this, no, what does the reader need to know? At least makabalo ta, no, atong ma point out kung asa lang jud ato ang i-discuss. Next question is that this is not question, no? So we should have to understand audience needs and expectation. So by understanding our audience needs and expectation, no, this can enhance the chances of communicating successfully. So of course, mura lang gud na maligya, no? In selling a product, we should know what are the needs of our customers. So more pud ning sa technical communication, of which we should have to understand and understand and identify the needs and expectation of our reader. Okay, let's now talk about types of audience. So we have 4 types of audience, no? The expert, the executive, the technician, and the layperson. So now let's start no defining unsa the expert. So sa expert class, we have 2 types of expert, no? The general expert and specific expert. So when we talk about general expert, these possess extensive knowledge about a field in general. From the word itself, general, iyahang knowledge class is kinatibuk-an, no? Kanang usually kanang naman jud tay classmate class, di ba nga? Wala siya specification, no? During high school, ay ang iyang ka bright is bright sa math, science, English, no? Pero wala siya gina-specify, no? Kung pangutanon sa ani nga butang, makatubag siya, no? Sa tanan aspect. However, ang difference lang niya sa specific is that si specific manggod is na specialized jud niya, no? Na sa specialization niya pag moentag kini nga classmate bright jud na siya science, no? So matagak nga specific expert to sa naman pud jud tay classmate of which bright siya sa tanan. However, kung i-dig deep jud nimo, no? I-specify jud nimo nga pag moentag science kanang mo mukutkot jud ka about sa science dili kay sa makatubag, no? Because iyang knowledge is general roman, no? Murag pahapyaw ba, kabalo sa tanan pero pahapyaw. However, kining specific expert, wait lang. So kining specific expert, wait. So kining specific expert class more into kanang details siya. So meaning if musulat ta about specific experts, then field na niya sa iyang expertise, no need na ta no muhatag og additional information because we know nga knowledgeable jud sa ana, no? So nakuha ang difference ni general expert and specific expert, no? For us to really understand, no, natin strategies for writing to experts. So if your audience consists solely of specific experts, you may not need to give extensive background or define key technical terms or acronyms. Meaning, kung ato ang padalan sa sulat is kay ang mga specific experts, so di na ta kinahanglan mo hatag og additional information, mo define sa mga terms because kanang we know nga how jud na sa ana, no? Just like for example sa doktor. So ang doktor na sila iya no, iya ang expertise, no, na mga internal medicine, na po'y uban niya sa gawas ay sa dili hawd sa internal, no? So inana. So those are examples of my specific experts. Just like sa field sa medicine, no, pag moenta og pharmacist, how dyan na sila about pharmaceuticals like mga tambal, medicines, no? Pag mo yung medtech na noon, suko na mo. Medtech or medical technician, so they are more into kanang testing kung okay ra ba, no? Okay ra ba atong dugo, unsay problems atong dugo and so on and so forth, no? So inana. Next is the general expert. So if your audience includes general experts, provide sufficient background information and define any terms that they might be unfamiliar with. So do not just present a concept to an expert. Also explain its parts and processes in details. So meaning, if our audience is considered as mga general experts, so dapat ato panghatagan og additional information, no? We should have to define terms because ang ilang kahibalo is pahapyaw lang, no? Kabalo sila sa tanang aspect. However, pahapyaw lang, no? Not that specific. So those are these are two types of experts. Next type of audience is executive. So executive are busy people who need to use documents primarily as tools in making decisions. So because executives read and review many documents, we should write our technical communication and write up in a brief, no, and direct to the point. So dapat if ato ang audience kay mga executives, usually busy man jud, no? Mga directors, mga presidents, COO, CEO. So usually busy jud na sila ng mga executives. That's why if we write something para sa ilaha, we should be very brief, no? Kay kapuyan kay na sila mahurot ilang time binasag communication, no? Usually sa isa ka adlaw pila kay naka-communication ilahang basahon. Just for example, in UM, no? Our COO is isa lang, no? In the main campus nakabutang. So pila ka branches ang UM. Sa isa ka branch pila ka office. So inana good class. So daghan kaayo og nagasulat padulong sa COO for approval, no? For request and all. That's why if executive atong i-communicatean, dapat brief lang ta, no? Kay wala na sila time para mobasa og taas. Okay, so strategies for writing to executive. So distill key information into an executive summary. That's why if main ganito executive summary, brief lang jud na siya, no, nga summary, no? Ang term executive summary. Then in general, present information in order of importance. So kung sa pinaka importante mo iunahon, no? Then emphasize information that will aid in making decisions. So that's it. So we should have to present it sufficient background information in your introduction, summarize all recommendations for action in your conclusion. If necessary, put technical explanations into appendices. Use graphs to summarize information, explain any unfamiliar terms. So it's all about kung unsaon nimo pag-attack, as long as always remember that if you write communication to executives, it should be very brief, no, because they don't have time to really read mga lengthy communication. Now let's talk about next type of audience, which is ang technician. So technicians are the people who construct, operate, and fix things. So we have strategies for writing to technicians, no? We should have to keep introduction and background information brief. So usually kining mga technicians mga di kini sila ganahan og wordy, no? Kay makabantay ta kanang mga computer technicians and something and all, di sila ganahan dagag storya, no? Ang ilaha magud is more on skills. So ilang ginapangita is that unsa man ang steps, unsa akong kinahanglan buhaton, ana gud diretso, di na nimo buhatan og mga introduction and so on and so forth, no? Then make information accessible. So inappropriate, when appropriate I mean, reduce information to instruction on how to perform a procedure or diagnose and fix a problem. So usually, mas ganahan na sila nga i-direct, no? So meaning, ato ang letter should be very kanang naka-detail jud ang instruction, no? Kay by that ma-follow man na nila. Use graphs and tables. Keep sections and overall instructions as short as possible and provide short definitions or explanations of any unfamiliar terms, tools, devices, or procedures. Next, the last type of audience is the layperson. So a layperson is one who does not possess the technical knowledge of an expert or a technician. So sa Bisaya pa, mga yanong tao, no? So layperson mo nito sila mga considered as mga yanong tao, of which wala na belong, no, sa expert nor sa technician. So unsaon man strategies, no, in writing for laypersons I mean. So we should have to present extensive background information in our introduction. So pasabot, if we write something, we should have to really define, no, our terms. I-explain dyan natong tarong sa introduction pa lang, ani ba ni? Pag mo intag ani, mauni, no? Kay by that, makasabot sila or makasunod. Organize information from the familiar to the unfamiliar. Simplify information to the level sufficient for the audience purpose in using the document. Explain all technical terms and illustrate and explain technical terms and concepts with analogies. So that's it, no? So we have 4 types of audience. First is expert. So ang expert, it's either general or specific. Tama ko? Second type of audience is ang technician, executive. Third is technician. Fourth is layperson. So that's it, no? So now let's compare, no? Tanaw na to. Expert versus layperson. So pag mo intag stat in medical term, that means immediately, no? However, pag mo intag stat sa layperson, that is shortcut, no, sa kanang statistics. So kini nga aspect pag mo intag stat class na belong ta sa layperson, no, we cannot really deny the fact because lahi man tag field, no? So kung mo intag stat at some point we are considered as laypersons, no? Dire kay kung puin po stat, pag mo stat, ako pagsabot jud ani statistics, no? Maginana. Next is backup. So sa computer term, that is duplicate a file, no? Or duplication sa kanang a file. However, kung mo intag backup in layperson, ang pasabot ana is support, no? So support. Pag mo intag backup, I need backup, support mo jud pasabot ana, no? Next, clean skin, no? Ang clean skin sa law enforcement term, a person without a police record, no? Pag mo tag okay man na siya kay clean skin, dili pasabot nga hamis na, no? Limpyo. However, sa lay person, skin without blemishes or dirt, no? Kahamis ba, no? Korean nga kuan glassy unsa daw na class mga glassy skin. Next is fatigue. So sa military term mo na ilang uniform, no, the camouflage uniform katong fatigue nila. However sa lay persons ang fatigue is katong nasobraag trabaho, no, nagka-fatigue, exhaustion from work, no. Next is check the box, no. Sa executive, that means complete the task. So meaning tanang point sa box dapat tan-awon nato, no, dapat makompleto. However sa lay person, ang pasabot anang check the box is put a check on the box. So checkan na nato. So that's why let's be very careful, no, in choosing words or terms. Kay usually maglahi-lahi mo tatong pagsabot, no. So mura pod na kanang mag-post, no, or kanang text sa text. Sa text, pag receive na to sa message, o ba ta kabaloon sa ang tono sa pag-deliver sa message. So usually naiuban nga text nga feeling ni sa kuha ba ani nang saba naman ni. However, in reality kung gi-deliver to niya, di wa dito nang saba more ana good class. So that's why lahi-lahi mo gud mag-vary. Then evangelist. So sa executive, loyal customers ang pasabot, no. Those are our evangelists. Charot, mga loyal customers. However, sa lay persons, ang pasabot sa evangelist is person who share the gospel. Then, pag mo yung out of pocket, ang sa executive nga knowledge is ang pasabot niya na is BC. However, sa lay person is out of budget. So, anay kwarta. Then, next is secret sauce. Sa executive, that means competitive advantage. No? So, that is our competitive advantage. Meaning, that is something unique in our process, no, of which makaingon ta nga di nato man ni makita sa uban because kita ray na inani nga proseso, no. That's his competitive advantage. However, pag mo intag secret sauce sa lay person, ang pagsabot na is secret ingredient, right, no. Then unpack. So pasabot examine in detail. However, sa lay person is unload or to remove. So that's it, no? So now let's talk about technician versus layperson. So in technician's terms, say you need a new piston, valve guides, stator, and counter shaft balancer. So dito pwede mo storyaan na sa layperson, no? Sa daw, sa mga valve, oy, di mo ta kasabot ana. So itong pagpasabot ana sa layperson is that din ani atong way, no, of giving the message. No, there are some internal parts that need to be replaced. So by that, makasabot si layperson, okay na din nadaot, sige. So may paliton, so inana. So in technician's terms na po, let's say momentum, a function of mass and velocity is conserved between portals. So in layperson's terms, we should have to say speedy things goes in, speedy things comes out. So ana-ana lang, no? Okay. Now let's talk about the difference between captive versus non-captive audience. So when we talk about captive audience class, this is required to be there. Maunit silang audience nga napugos, no, or required na siya nga naa sila dira, no. So meaning, since required man sila, so they don't have a choice but to listen, no. Next is non-captive audience. So a non-captive audience is just there for fun. So wala sila naminaw or wala sila dira kay para maminaw jud og tarong. However, naalang sila dira because wala sila trip, no? So para ma-define na tog tarong, ang difference between captive and non-captive mo ni difference, no? With regards sa location, ang example sa captive audience is katong mga tao nga naa sa classroom, no? If nasa sa classroom, meaning we are required to listen, no? We are required to listen. However, sa non-captive naman, katong park or museum, so katong mga tao nga nasa park or sa museum, of course, kung tayo magklase ka dito, they are really not required, no? So they are considered as non-captive audience. About sa attendance, involuntary, voluntary, atmosphere, formal, informal, approach, academic, non